In the early 20th century, the world stood at a precipice, with geopolitical tensions simmering beneath the surface. At the heart of these tensions lay the German Empire, a relatively young nation that had undergone a rapid and militaristic rise to power. Understanding why Germany chose to start the war in 1914 requires a deep examination of the various internal and external pressures, ambitions, and ideologies that shaped its decision-making. From aggressive nationalism to imperial ambitions, the roots of Germany's actions were complex, multi-layered, and deeply intertwined with the structure of European politics. Germany, unified under the Prussian monarchy in 1871, had risen to become one of the most powerful nations in Europe. This unification, however, had set the stage for a militaristic culture to dominate its political landscape. Otto von Bismarck, the architect of German unification, had engineered a series of wars in the 1860s to achieve this goal. Though Bismarck himself sought to maintain peace after unification, his realpolitik style left behind a legacy of militarism and aggression. As Germany grew in power, so did its desire to assert itself on the global stage, but it found itself constrained by the existing power structures, particularly the British and French empires. At the core of Germany's expansionist ambition was the idea of Weltpolitik, a foreign policy doctrine developed in the late 19th century. This doctrine aimed at making Germany a world power through aggressive diplomacy, military buildup, and the acquisition of overseas colonies. Kaiser Wilhelm II, who ascended to the throne in 1888, was the main proponent of this policy. Unlike his predecessor Bismarck, Wilhelm II was more erratic, insecure, and driven by a desire to see Germany dominate not only Europe but the entire world. He believed that the nation's destiny was to rule, and this belief translated into a dangerous combination of military buildup, nationalism, and a sense of racial superiority. This aggressive foreign policy set Germany on a collision course with other great powers. The alliances of the early 20th century created a tinderbox that would eventually ignite the flames of World War I. Germany, part of the Triple Alliance alongside Austria-Hungary and Italy, found itself surrounded by rivals, particularly France and Russia. The Entente Cordiale between France and Britain, as well as the Franco-Russian alliance, further exacerbated Germany's sense of encirclement. The Schlieffen Plan, developed in the early 1900s, reflected this sense of desperation. The plan was a military strategy designed to avoid a two-front war by quickly defeating France in the west before turning to Russia in the east. However, it was a deeply flawed plan that hinged on rapid mobilization and ignored the diplomatic fallout of such an aggressive move. The German leadership knew that executing this plan would almost certainly lead to a broader conflict, but they believed that a war was inevitable and better fought sooner than later. A significant factor that contributed to Germany's path to war was its deep-seated belief in social Darwinism and the concept of survival of the fittest, applied not just to individuals but to nations. German elites, including many within the military and political leadership, believed that war was a natural and necessary tool for the progress of civilization. They saw conflict as a purifying force that would weed out weak nations and cement Germany's position as a dominant power. This ideology was particularly prevalent within the Prussian military officer class, which held significant sway over German politics. The idea of war as a cleansing force was dehumanizing in itself, as it reduced human life to a mere tool for the advancement of national interests. Beyond ideology, Germany was driven by economic pressures and imperial ambitions. By the early 20th century, the German economy was booming, but it lacked the overseas colonies and markets that the British and French empires enjoyed. Germany felt entitled to a place in the sun and believed that it was being unfairly excluded from global power structures. Its ambitions to expand its empire clashed with the interests of Britain, which controlled vast swathes of the world. The naval arms race between Britain and Germany in the years leading up to the war was symptomatic of this rivalry. Germany's desire for a powerful navy was not just a matter of military necessity, but also a symbol of its imperial aspirations. However, this naval buildup further strained relations with Britain, which saw Germany's ambitions as a direct threat to its own global dominance. Germany's aggressive foreign policy in the years leading up to the war also played a role in creating the conditions for conflict. The Moroccan crises of 1905 and 1911, where Germany attempted to challenge French influence in North Africa, were clear examples of its willingness to provoke tensions. Though these crises did not lead to war, they further isolated Germany diplomatically and strengthened the resolve of the Entente powers to oppose its expansionist agenda. The German leadership, particularly Kaiser Wilhelm II, viewed these crises as tests of their resolve. Each time Germany was rebuffed by the other powers, its leadership became more convinced that war was the only way to achieve its goals. When Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary was assassinated in Sarajevo in June 1914, the German leadership saw an opportunity. Austria-Hungary, Germany's closest ally, was facing a nationalist insurgency in the Balkans, and Germany believed that supporting its ally and crushing this insurgency would further its own interests. The infamous blank check that Germany gave to Austria-Hungary, promising unconditional support, was a crucial step toward war. Germany believed that by backing Austria-Hungary's aggressive actions against Serbia, it could secure its allies' loyalty and perhaps even expand its own influence in the Balkans. However, this decision set off a chain reaction that ultimately led to the broader conflict. Germany's leadership also believed that its military superiority would guarantee a swift victory. The Prussian military tradition had instilled a sense of invincibility among Germany's leaders, who were confident that their well-trained and highly organized army could defeat the forces of the Entente. This overconfidence was compounded by the Schlieffen Plan, which assumed that Germany could quickly defeat France before turning its attention to Russia. The German leadership was willing to take immense risks, believing that the rewards of victory would far outweigh the costs of war. However, this arrogance would prove disastrous, as the war quickly spiraled out of control, leading to unprecedented levels of brutality and suffering. As Germany prepared for war in the summer of 1914, it embarked on a path that would unleash unimaginable horrors upon Europe and the world. The war that Germany helped to ignite would become a symbol of industrialized brutality, with millions of soldiers and civilians alike perishing in the carnage. Germany's role in starting the war was not merely the result of a single decision, but rather the culmination of years of aggressive foreign policy, militaristic ideology, and imperial ambition. As the war unfolded, Germany's actions would become increasingly brutal, as it sought to achieve its goals at any cost.